I'm just down here on the Indian Creek doing a little panning, seeing what I can find for color. You bet. But you're here for a story. Well, the first ranch that came along here, about 100,000 acres plus, they came up to Culberson and out this direction, another 40 miles. And one day some cowboys, they had dozens of them working for them, watching the cattle. One day they came up this direction and they noticed some cattle had been killed. Well, they followed some tracks. They came up to the Republican River, up to the Indian Creek here. And then they went up to Indian Creek. The tracks curved off and come this way. Well, the first bunch of Indians that they found, they assumed they was the ones that was killing the cattle and eating them, because there wasn't no buffalo left. And they say officially that they killed about a half a dozen Indians, gunned them down, cattle rustling, just saved a rope from hanging them. Back then, that stealing cattle and killing them was a hanging offense. Some years later, though, one of those cowboys got drunk and was saying that there was closer to a dozen plus, and there was women and children involved, and they just shot them down like dogs. Whatever the story would be, and it's probably somewhere in between, they call this Indian Creek ever since. Ever since. But that's how Indian Creek got its name. And yeah, there is some color in Indian Creek, I have found over the last 30 years. But I've never found the mother lode yet. I'm getting ready to run some of this sand through my mixer here and make sure there ain't any color in it. And I always mark my spots along the Indian Creek looking for the mother lode. See if I can find any yellow out there. But to finish up on the Indian Creek, I knew a gentleman that was born and raised on the Indian Creek. Daniels was his name. And he told that his father had come from the Mississippi around 1900. And he said his father, as a young man, got tired of back there, so he said, I'm going to come out here and make my way. He got to Stratton on the railroad, and there on the depot wall was help wanted, sheepherder. And he was getting kind of low on money, so he decided he'd try that. He'd heard of it, never done it. And so he went up to the owner of the sheep and he said, I'd like a job. And old sheepherder said, have you had any experience? And he said, none whatsoever. And he said, you're hired. That's how easy it was to be a sheepherder. Well, they gave him a small wagon and a tent, and he said he worked there through the summer. But he said the first weekend out there, he said there was a number of big ranches out there, and they'd work 6 days a week, and on Saturday night they'd come to town. And he said they was belligerent young bucks. They were, no question. Them cowboys was looking for a little bit of excitement and maybe a wee bit of trouble. And so they enjoyed riding through his sheep herd at nighttime, heading to town, and with their guns blazing, and scare them all over the place. And he said take day, maybe 2 days to round up all them sheep again. And he said some of them got hurt, some died. And he said that wasn't going to keep his job. And so after he got them rounded up, he went the next day and talked to the rancher and said, hey, you got to control your hired hands. Your ranch cowboys are doing that to my sheep. Well, the ranch hands and the ranch owners real quickly told him to get off their property or they'd hang him. That's what they thought of sheepherders. They'd hang him. So he said, I'm on my own. So he went to town himself. And he bought him a little 36 caliber rimfire revolver. 36 caliber rimfire revolver. Used one. I think he said it was $5 if I remember right, is what he paid for the gun. Well, he said the next weekend here they came again. But he said before they ran through his sheep, he said he was out there amongst the sheep and he started shooting his own gun. He said most of them cowboys was a-heading for every direction. He said only 2 of them went the other direction near his camp and roped and tore his tent down. But he said the rest of them got the devil out of there. And he said from then on, though, they figured if I'm going to be shooting back, it's fun to just shoot at the sheep or shoot up in the air. But if somebody's shooting back at you, all of a sudden, those cowboys, they weren't as brave as they was before. And so a gun protected him. And he, in time, bought a small place there, and it was on the Indian Creek, just, a couple of miles east of Max, Nebraska now. And that old Indian Creek has seen some massive floods, and it's seen droughts. But they had their homestead right next to it. And that was an incredible place to live and an enjoyable place. And through the years, he told. But that was because his father came from the Mississippi out here, and started by raising sheep and protecting the sheep, being a sheep herder.